Story 1. People who grew up in a nice, peaceful suburb acting like they are from a disadvantaged urban neighborhood. Story 2. Bragging about watching graphic violence and making jokes about people or animals getting hurt. Story 3. Discuss physical violence or similar actions. Story 4. Get a big strong dog to look tough, but they obviously can't handle it. I was at the veterinarian with my service dog and saw a man get dragged all around the room by his Great Dane. It wasn't even fully grown yet, and he obviously had no control over it. It didn't have a proper collar, just a thick metal chain around its neck that was attached to another metal chain as a leash. It also wasn't neutered. The man asked me how I got my big dog to be so well behaved. When I said, "I trained him," he scoffed and said, "That won't work for my dog. He never listens." The look on his face when I calmly took out one of my service dog's treats, had his dog sniff the treat, and then easily got his dog to sit for the treat on command was priceless. Story 5. People who purposely rev their cars or have enhancements that make their car sound like it needs a new muffler. People who crank up the bass in their vehicle so that everyone within 100 feet is forced to listen to their poor quality music. Story 6. Bragging about how many times you have been in a fight or saying you can fight someone does not make you tough. You just have anger issues and need therapy. Story 7. It is less about what people do and more about what they say they do to seem edgy. People can be all talk. It is cringeworthy. Story 8. Be homophobic or sexist and call themselves Chad and alpha male. Story 9. Contrarians are the worst form of edgy. Arguing just to get attention and playing devil's advocate because both sides deserve to be fought equally is not an exercise everyone needs to partake in. Story 10. Insulting people and trying to put them down while claiming it is just being brutally honest. People who use that excuse usually prefer being brutal more than being honest. Speaking from experience. Story 11. It sounds ironic, but those who try to tear down what other people are doing and explain why it is cringe. I do not mean just saying, "Oh, that thing is cringe," because sometimes things really are cringe. I mean people who see you wearing something like a black coat or white Air Force Ones, then feel an incessant need to tell everyone within earshot why you are a cringy poser who is obviously imitating some established style to try to fit in or look edgy. It's like, listen, you are the one wearing a trilby and insisting it is a fedora. Please be quiet. Story 12. First it was the Crow in the 1990s and then it was the Joker in the 2010s and 2020s. There is always that guy who puts on the makeup, does the hair, and dresses up like them, thinking that somehow this makes everybody believe he is as dark, mysterious, and brooding as they are. You gave yourself away when you left the convenience store with a hot pocket and got into your 2009 Suzuki Aereo. Story 13. When people act like they hate everything mainstream just for the sake of being different. I understand you do not listen to any music that more than 5 people have heard of, but if everyone is trying to be unique in the same way, is that not the most basic thing ever? Just admit you love that one Taylor Swift song and let's all move on. Story 14. People who argue with everything you say just to be contrary or say negative things about everything you enjoy are unnecessary. No one needs that kind of negativity in their lives. Story 15. Creating content with very sensitive and often violent subjects without treating it with dignity or respect, but rather using it for shock value. Story 16. Had a kid in high school who would make the most unbelievable lies about how he served in the Middle East and how he had killed terrorists because he was so tough. He would also go into too much detail about the killings. There was another kid who was supposedly a Russian spy. I suspect they were both trying to one-up each other in edginess, and it got out of hand. Story 17. Talk about how much they despise children. Like, cool, you had a bad childhood, we get it. Your jokes about punting a literal toddler into the sun for age-appropriate behavior make you look bitter and a little unhinged. I am way too easily overstimulated to ever have children. I still understand and respect that they are people, and I do not brag that I hate them or think they should be banished from public spaces. Story 18. Flat Earthers. It is 2024. Science exists and we have known the Earth is a globe for quite a while now. Just stop. Story 19. Taking a picture of their dinner while perfectly placing their lighter and joint or bowl in the frame. Like nobody cares that you smoke weed. Story 20. When people say racist, sexist, or hurtful things on social media platforms to try to sound edgy, funny, or contrarian, you just know in real life they hate themselves. Story 21. Boasting about damaging vehicles or vandalism in general. Story 22. If it involves one of those The Punisher stickers or logos on a shirt, or some meme format talking about how loyal but dangerous they are. Story 23. People obsessed with body counts. I'm older and not dating, so it doesn't affect me, but every time I hear men with microphones screaming about women's body count, I cringe. Just say you're intimidated and afraid you might have a low number and won't measure up. You don't have to date her. You're upset about your own insecurities, not what you perceive as hers. Story 24. Acting tough in the gym. Walking in with headphones on, looking angry with wide lats, only to occupy a squat rack for an hour and a half on an apparent 4 sets of 39 squats workout. The same person grunting loudly and slamming weights around like a bodybuilder, while they are overweight and have poor form. Or the opposite. People who dance to music and rap as if they are in the final scene of 8 Mile. Just go to the gym, exercise, and listen to music. Sit down between sets and rest. That is what the rest portion is for. It is not a social competition, and I am laughing at you. Just be normal. We do not have to be extreme, either a hard ass or a zany goofball. It is strange. Story 25. Being mean towards cashiers does not make you cool. Nobody thinks you are cool. I am just trying to get through my day to get paid, so I can afford my apartment and food. Story 26. Wearing mental illnesses as a medal. No. Having borderline personality disorder does not make you quirky and unique. Story 27. Playing devil's advocate for actual Nazis and trying to see both sides. Story 28. Bragging about your sex life or virginity. I mean, have as much or as little sex as you want, all the power to you, but bragging about it in either direction is really cringe. Story 29. People who say, I see red when I am angry, to describe their blatant anger and aggression issues. Also, any variation of, I lose control when XYZ. Story 30. There were a few high school students in my state who thought it would be a good idea to spell out a racial slur and pose for a picture. They caused homecoming to be canceled for their entire school. Story 31. Talk negatively about God all the time. I am not a Christian either, but I do not constantly talk about how much I hate it. My friend has a friend who does that, and she has told me, for a guy who hates God, he sure does talk about him all the time. Story 32. Empty patriotism. Flags everywhere. Second Amendment and National Rifle Association stickers. Story 33. Young people smoking tobacco are setting themselves up for a life of severe addiction, followed by years of carrying an oxygen bottle and struggling to breathe, ultimately leading to a miserable death. This outcome is guaranteed. Story 34. Creating a cult or ritual black metal bands that serve merely as a cover for promoting Nazism or white supremacy. Story 35. Random content creators performing skits intended to appear real, such as breaking their televisions, while clearly acting. Story 36. To be honest, as a Christian, people who pretend to be Christian think it is somehow edgy. Story 37. Metalheads who insist other popular music is not as good as their favorite bands. This attitude almost always comes from people deeply into metalcore bands that are very popular in their genre. They often dislike artists like Taylor Swift or other popular genre musicians. It is okay to enjoy catchy pop and metal. It is also okay if you do not like any other genres besides metal. However, music is very individual, and it makes no sense to act as if only your favorite bands are truly good at making music. You are not cool and metal for disliking everyone else's music. You come across as immature. Story 38. I've got two statements I hear a lot, often from the same people. I have a really dark sense of humor. You wouldn't get it. I find school shootings really funny, and I make a lot of jokes about subjects like the Holocaust that offend sensitive people. I'm a psychopath or sociopath. I will do harmful things to anyone. I don't care. People are just pawns to me. They don't understand how the world works or how much better things would be for them if they opened their eyes like I have. I'm not another cog in the machine. I'm smarter and better. I'll use anyone, even my own friends, because they're followers too. I'm the only one who understands. Story 39. People who create Alpha Sigma YouTube shorts, attempting to quote, emulate, and glorify the silent, badass anime or movie protagonist, often come across as cringeworthy and lacking personality. Two good examples are Patrick Bateman from the film American Psycho and Sasuke Uchiha from the anime Naruto. Story 40. People who still use the middle finger as a pose in pictures. Story 41. Bragging about bar fights. Just say you are a violent alcoholic who needs therapy. Story 42. Ignoring or outright dismissing the good in people. People do many kind, selfless, and wonderful things for each other. Small acts like holding the door for someone, and large actions like marching against hatred and bigotry. Humans perform many good deeds, and those who cannot accept this and believe these acts are done secretly for selfish reasons, or do not happen at all, frustrate me. This is especially true because such thinking becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. These individuals are snarky, dislikable misanthropes who hate people, and then their beliefs are confirmed when others are unkind to them, in part because they have displayed such negativity. Story 43. Flipping the camera off because they are so hardcore that they need internet recognition for how hardcore they believe they are. Story 44. People who are wearing a belt and their pants are still down by their knees. Story 45. People who go to disc jockey performances and crowd around the disc jockey booth as if they are all best friends. Story 46. Saying slurs does not offend me. It just annoys me that so much wasted energy is going around. Story 47. Misuse or overuse of trendy terms, such as ableist. It is unfortunate because it actually prevents change. Walking around calling people names every day makes others defensive. Why not simply open up a discussion? If I do not like something that a coworker is doing, I do not yell, "You are being inappropriate." Instead, I engage them in a discussion. People are not likely to change if you call them names. I have a new boss who is self-centered. He never provides positive feedback. Instead of calling him self-centered, I asked him to provide some positive feedback when our team does things he likes. Guess what? It worked. Story 48. Talk about the evils of colonialism but do not see the irony that their country can send a plane to any Arab country at any time whose ruler is a complete puppet and bomb the civilians. Until you truly respect the humanity of other people and the sovereignty of their country, you are not free of blame at all if you think it all had an end date. Story 49. Linking unusual traits to intellectual superiority, such as atheism, staying up late, or music genres. Story 50. I tell it like it is. I am not politically correct. You are all just haters. Translation. My entire personality is starting fights with people, then acting offended when someone takes the bait. Story 51. Bragging about how much you drink. Yes, people still do this. Story 52. Stupid shock value dark humor jokes are either actual bigotry or someone being an unpleasant person to get a reaction from others. There is a difference between dark humor and being completely unpleasant. Also, the attitude of being better or cooler because of early exposure to gore or shock websites feels very immature to me. Story 53. Downplaying my achievements to make themselves look better. Story 54. No one knows the pain I feel. This same person also lives in a perfectly fine, middle-class household with non-abusive parents and has no struggle. Of course, people who say that can always be telling the truth, but it is typically those who are silent or look normal that are the most pained. Story 55. Any joke that makes fun of a minority group. Call me a socially aware person or social justice warrior or whatever, but edgy humor is truly the most cringeworthy humor I have ever encountered. Story 56. Getting into fights and being stabbed. Story 57. I do not know if it is still a trend, but the trench coat goths with the large collection of mall knives, pet snake or tarantula and so on. Story 58. I have seen adult men try to flirt by acting like moody bad boys. Shouldn't that be something you grow out of during high school? I understand some adults are still attracted to that, but it seems strange to me. They come across as emotionally immature men who peaked in high school, never stopping their behavior as angst-ridden teenage boys with main character syndrome. Story 59. Using a dictator or an evil person from history as a profile picture and naming themselves after that person shows apathy and a focus on the past. This behavior is unwise. Story 60. People who split their tongues and undergo extreme body modification surgeries. I do not know if they are necessarily trying to be edgy, but it does freak me out. Story 61. Flying flags from their trucks or their poor Nissan vehicles. I love my country, Canada. I am deeply disgusted by how flags are stolen from their true intended purpose to degrade, intimidate, and harass others. Story 62. Fervently saying their music, usually something popular, is superior and other music is inferior. Also, favoring conformity over experimentation. Story 63. People who try to seem flashy with their money by going on trips every few months, but in reality they are racking up millions of dollars in debt. Story 64. Trying to act cute when they are literally just acting like toddlers, and people who behave like babies or toddlers around their partners. Tell me I am not the only one, please. I absolutely hate those kinds of behaviors. If no one hated it, I would probably be dead. It is so cringy and weird. I do not understand why people do those toddler things. Story 65. Specifically regarding the United States elections. Some people pretend they are undecided. I am convinced at this point that these individuals enjoy the attention they receive by claiming that both sides are equally flawed and that they cannot make up their minds. Others say they will cast a protest vote to teach one side a lesson. Story 66. Low-rise jeans. Vaporizing. Sloth-length acrylic fingernails. Story 67. The constant political hostility and negative comments associated with hatred for the opposing party. Example. In another discussion, someone asked, "What is one thing you hate the most?" The response was, "Republicans." This kind of sentiment continues repeatedly. Story 68. Liking edgy humor or talking about how impressive or admirable whatever they are doing. Story 69. Be serious, wear battle vests, and only hang out at heavy metal bars with other heavy metal fans. Boring. Story 70. Getting tattoos in general. At this point, it is edgier to not have a tattoo. Story 71. Women who dedicate their platform to tearing down other women and promoting misogynistic ideas or narratives because they identify as just one of the guys. This does not only apply to women who spread alt-right misinformation to seek validation from men. Women who act like they are too good to wear makeup, dress feminine, drink fruity cocktails, or enjoy all-girl trips and activities. While I understand that not all women are interested in typical girly things, I personally think leggings are the itchiest, sweatiest, skin-irritating pants in the world. Having an attitude that you are better or so edgy and different just because you have more gender-neutral or masculine hobbies is extremely annoying. Story 72. Tattoos. Many people are making some poor choices. Story 73. Chappell Roan compared fame to having an abusive partner. Not all abuse victims are millionaires who can afford bodyguards. Story 74. This basically sums up why I do not like South Park. You can have edgy and dark humor that is funny and pokes fun at things, but South Park just tries to be edgy to be funny. It ends up not being funny and is just cringe. Story 75. People who are very focused on religion as if they have something new to say. We understand you do not like certain things, but this topic has been discussed for thousands of years, and your so-called new perspective is very old. Story 76. Please provide the text you would like me to process. Story 77. People who still physically fight others over trivial matters. It does not erase the past. The event still occurred. Also, anything involving politics where one side tries too far under the other's skin. Story 78. Everything Monica Padman says on Armchair Expert. She is insufferable. Story 79. Make a joke with the group of friends about not treating their partner well. Story 80. Telling me to get back in the kitchen. I have heard it 20 million times before, and it got old after the first million. Story 81. Carrying guns for self-defense. I really hope these people do not get themselves hurt. Story 82. Bragging about how many people they have slept with. If they are not lying, which they probably are, that just means, I am an irresponsible person who cannot commit to one person, And or I am a shallow person who thinks the value of a person is decided by the number of partners they have had. Story 83. Wearing a mask at this point is just virtue signaling that you are a supporter of pharmaceutical companies. Story 84. People who are older using internet language in real-life conversations, I just cannot continue talking to them. Story 85. People who think it is rebellious and edgy to wear leather, spikes, dye their hair, wear gothic makeup, rip tights, and have many piercings in their head do not realize that so-called edgy people have worn that uniform for decades. It is not edgy. It is just another uniform. Wear it if you like it, but it does not make you a unique rebel. Story 86. Pretending to be depressed or suicidal does not make me cringe. It makes me angry, especially when people fake conditions like autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and Tourette syndrome. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.